Senate will come to order. Mr. Carpenter, please call the roll.
Senators Aguilar, Baumgardner, Cook, Corum, Court, Crowder, Donovan, Finberg, Fields, Garcia, Gardner, Guzman, Hill, Holbert, John, Jones, Kagan, Kafalis, Kerr, Lambert, Lumberg, Marble, Martinez-Humenic, Merrifield, Moreno, Neville, Priola,
He's coming in.
Priola, Scott, Smallwood, Sonnenberg, Tate, Todd, Williams, Zinzinger. Mr. President.
Here. 35 present, 0 absent, 0 excused. We have a quorum. Colleagues, guests in the chamber and in the gallery, please rise and stand for the presentation of colors by the Valkyrie Cadet Squadron, Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Kyle Vesteca, Cadet Captain Leighton Wright, Cadet First Lieutenant Louis Stein, Cadet Second Lieutenant Janet Sanner.
Coach. Birch. Color guard. Holt. Present. Horms. Post. Order. Arms. More time. Birch. Closer. Birch. Forward. Birch.
Senator Fields.
Good morning, Mr. President, colleagues, and chamber guests. Please join me for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of the journal, Senator Fenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the reading of the journal of Wednesday, April 11th, 2018 be dispensed with and that the journal be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You've heard the motion. Is there any objection? Seeing none, the motion is adopted. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate proceed out of order for a moment of personal privilege by the good senator from Colorado Springs, District 9.
The motion is for the Senate to proceed out of order for a moment of personal privilege by Senator Lambert. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will proceed out of order. Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Members, you might have noticed this is Civil Air Patrol Day at the Capitol, and we have cadets that are visiting today. I would like to make a couple of acknowledgments here. First of all, the color guard you saw is in a competitive color guard team. They're doing quite well, and they'll probably go on to the national competition within Civil Air Patrol for color guards. That's part of the overall mission of the Civil Air Patrol is public education, and those cadets do a variety of things, everything from cyber competitions where some of our state squadrons have won at the national level. But I would like to introduce Colonel Celeste Gamache, the commander of the Colorado Civil Air Patrol. And members, we have some information for you about the Civil Air Patrol. You actually should have gotten two little handouts here. If you open the larger one to the middle page, you can see some of the summaries of the kinds of missions that the Civil Air Patrol has performed nationally. I believe they've been responsible for about 300 saved, just in 2017, 798 search and rescue missions credited with saving 110 lives around the country. In Colorado alone, there were 2 lives saved by operations of the Civil Air Patrol. There's a lot of other information contained in these documents that you can look at your leisure if you have any. But this is also an important year for the Civil Air Patrol. A couple of years ago, we had a resolution that honored the 75th anniversary of the founding of the Civil Air Patrol, and they were actually founded prior to the United States Air Force. And actually prior to World War II. They date their history back to about a week before Pearl Harbor is when the Civil Air Patrol was founded. And it became, 75 years ago this year, became officially recognized as the United States Air Force Auxiliary. It took a couple of years for Congress to get around to recognizing the United States Air Force. That actually happened in 1947, and the next year, the Civil Air Patrol was officially designated by law as the Air Force Auxiliary. You may know both the Air Force and the Coast Guard have auxiliaries in all the different states. In Colorado, it's organizationally under the Adjutant General of the state of Colorado and perform operational missions. There's some real milestones this year. This is the first year, and members, you can sit down, please, if you'd like to. For the first time in Colorado, there is a public charter school called the Colorado Military Academy down in Colorado Springs, right on the fence line of Peterson Air Force Base. It started up this last academic year, and it's about 800 to 850 students, I believe, in its first year, K through 8. They'll be expanding into a high school program probably next year. The interesting thing, though, is that their curriculum is a Civil Air Patrol curriculum. So it's very aviation-oriented. I would expect in the next couple of years they might actually start training high school cadets to fly aircraft, things like that, as part of their STEM education that is very heavily oriented towards science and technology, mathematics. I know some of the students that attend there, and they're very happy with that program. The Civil Air Patrol is kind of a family thing for me. My mother briefly was a volunteer during World War II, and along with the other about, 250,000 volunteers in World War II, a couple years ago was awarded the Congressional Medal recognizing that organization, which was really not well acknowledged during World War II, but they performed operational missions really for the defense of the U.S. coasts, identifying primarily German and some Japanese submarines, and actually sinking a couple, we believe, in the Gulf of Mexico. So they've had a long history of operations, and Mr. President, I would like to acknowledge the fact that we'll be preparing and delivering that tribute to the Wing Commander of the Civil Air Patrol here a little bit later today. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Marble.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a very, very special place in my heart for the Civil Air Patrol.
Would you like to request a moment of personal privilege?
Yes, I would. May I please request a moment of personal privilege?
You may request it, yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. That honor and love that I have is very personal. This last fall, I was able to take a flight with the Civil Air Patrol, and what a flight it was. I flew all over my district, and at the end of the flight, they asked if I had any requests of where I wanted to go. And I told them yes, Comanche Peak in the Rocky Mountain National Park. They knew exactly why I wanted to go there. That is where my children lost their father in a plane crash 18 years ago. We buzzed on over all the peaks and took a pretty much direct line. And for the first time, I was able to take pictures and really have some closure to the loss of my son's father and my ex-husband. Right now, I can honestly say that without the work you did from April 30th to May 7th, putting out that grid to search for an impossible find. That plane was so decimated, it was an act of God. It was actually a radar reader down around the Nevada area who was able to say, check Comanche Peak, they're there. The Civil Air Patrol, it was getting dark, but they said, you know what, we're gonna go out one more time. They did. They radioed back and said, we're coming back for coffee, meaning they found it. We were notified that evening that the wreckage had been located. There were no survivors, but they would be out the next day to see what they could get as far as information. My sons and I, my stepkids, we all had held vigil all those days. And the amount of relief in knowing that even though you have lost somebody, you at least know they aren't suffering and they were dead. My sons and my stepkids kept saying, well, what if they're hurt? What if they need help? What can we do? That was the most anxiety-producing part of not knowing. But for an impossible find, my family, all of us, thank you for sticking it out in an impossible moment and finding a wreckage that never should have been found. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to fly that plane myself and get directions to really see where it happened. And I know, because verbally we had been told about the act of the crash. And yeah, it was exactly what I thought. My kids thank you. I thank you again. And thank you for being here. If words could only tell you, for not just my family, but all families who you have done such a great service for and never asked a bit of thanks. Thank you.
Senator Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you. And members, I want to thank the senator from Colorado Springs for bringing us today on the Civil Air Patrol. And Civil Air Patrol has a special place in my heart also. I want to thank you for the programs that you offer for our youth. My son, when he was in the 8th grade, attending Bishop Matchbuff High School, was interested in aviation, and I entered him into the Civil Air Patrol program over at Lowry Air Force Base, and it really shaped his career and where he was going in aviation, and it was probably one of the best things for him in guiding him in his career. So thank you for that. Last year, I also had an opportunity to go to Centennial Airport and fly with one of the instructors. And aviation is big in our family. Not only is my son in aviation, but my brother is a captain for Delta Airlines. And so to be in that plane and fly over the Air Force Base, it was just incredible, the work that they do, helping to fight fires in our state when we've had some wildfires. But the opportunity to get permission to fly over, the United States Air Force Base in Colorado Springs was a true honor for me. And I just want to thank you for all of your contributions to our youth and to the people of Colorado. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. President. Request a moment of personal privilege. Thank you. Those operational missions are all across the country: hurricane relief, wildfire relief, and here in Colorado. Thank you for the senator to talk about personal experience in your life of something that really touches our lives directly. Many of you don't know about the tempo of what they actually do here on operational missions. I think there's 16 there's 16 aircraft here in the Civil Air Patrol in several different bases. I think there are about 60 different squadrons in Colorado of cadet squadrons. But just this month, I'm going to read something, a couple text messages that you've probably never seen, but I get the text messages from Civil Air Patrol operations. Vaughn Campbell, need aircrew for tomorrow morning for overdue aircraft search. Next one is air crews for first tasking are set. Other crews stand by. Ground team needed for search west-southwest of Denver. Contact Vaughn Campbell when team assembled. Need CUL and AOBD to assist in aircraft search. Still need ground team west-southwest of Denver, have CUL and AOBD, others stand by. Now remember, all of these are volunteers that are not paid any compensation, but they will stop their lives, their mission, their work, everything else. They have pagers and they'll immediately respond to those stations for ground teams and aircraft teams. Still need ground team for west-southwest of Denver. This isn't by days, this is a couple minutes later. They're still coordinating. Need chaplain for search mission. There are several, many chaplains. We have one, I believe, today in the chambers that provide consolation to family members and things like that during some of these searches. Need base staff for BJT tomorrow for lost aircraft search. This is another lost aircraft search. Need planning section for missing aircraft search. Need air crews for ongoing search for missing aircraft. Need ICP staff at BJC tomorrow. Need air crews for search tomorrow. Call when the crew is complete. These are ongoing operations that happen almost on a daily basis of volunteers throughout our state. The Civil Air Patrol is the primary manager for, under the Adjutant General for aircraft search and rescue operations in the state. And thank you for your attention today about this very important organization that affects many lives in our state. Thank you.
Committee reports.
April 11, 2018, Committee on Judiciary. After consideration of Mayor's Committee Records filing House Bill 1156, be amended as follows. As amended for the committee to hold the favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. April 11, 2018, Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs. After consideration of Mayor's Committee Records filing House Bill 1274, be postponed indefinitely. April 11, 2018, Committee on Business, Labor, and Technology. After consideration of Mayor's Committee Records filing House Bill 1149, be postponed indefinitely. April 11, 2018, the Committee on Business, Labor, and Technology has had on consideration and had hearing on the following appointments. Recommends the appointments to be placed on the consent calendar and confirmed. Members of the Uninsured Employer Board for a term expiring September 1st, 2018. Jason Lee Wardrop of Aurora, Colorado, serves as representative of labor organizations appointed. April 11, 2018, the Committee on Business, Labor, and Technology has had on consideration and had hearing on the following appointments. Recommends the appointments to be placed on the consent calendar and confirmed. Member of the Workers' Compensation Cost Containment Board for a term expiring December 13, 2019, Jeffrey Michael Citrone of Denver, Colorado, serves as an executive with good risk management experience in the insurance industry, reappointed. April 11, 2018, Committee on Business, Labor, and Technology. After consideration of Mayor's Committee Records filing House Bill 1250, be referred to committee to hold the favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the Senate proceed out of order for a moment of personal privilege by the senator from Berthoud, District 15.
Senator Lindberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for a moment of personal privilege.
You may ask for a moment of personal privilege.
I do ask. May I have a moment of personal privilege?
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, just about 48 years ago, I showed up on the campus of a very small school out in Lakewood as a freshman. And today, that school is known as Colorado Christian University, and they've sent a delegation of students and personnel from the school to be with us today. And I have a tribute that I would like to read that you signed, Mr. President. It goes as following. Colorado Christian University is the premier interdenominational Christian college in Colorado and the 8-state Rocky Mountain region, delivering world-class education to thousands of students. In 1914, Denver Bible Institute was founded on two principles, grace and truth. The first classes encompassed only 2 students and 1 teacher. But from those modest beginnings, Colorado Christian University was born. Through the years, many things about Colorado Christian University have changed. The university now consists of 2 schools, the College of Undergraduate Studies with a traditional residential program, and the College of Adult Graduate Studies offering non-traditional undergraduate programs and master's degrees through more than 100 degree programs. Today, there are more than 7,000 CCU undergraduate and graduate students spread throughout all 50 states and several countries. Scholars dedicated to integrating high-level academics with timeless faith. More than 100 years later, students continue to learn in grace and truth. Mr. President, as I said before, we are very honored to have many from the school. I should hope they could stand at this time to be acknowledged. And over in the House, there are several others as well. Yeah, you can clap now. And I would also say that if that little school that I showed up on the doorstep of 48 years ago, has a tremendous campus that's being built into a real world-class private institution of higher education. If you haven't been out there in the last few years, I highly recommend it. You'll understand how Colorado Christian University is now a very important institution of higher education for the people of Colorado and surrounding areas, and we're certainly honored to have them with us today. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I may tag on to that moment of personal privilege about
May.
Colorado Christian University. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Being in my district, in Senate District 22, I'd like to welcome the students and staff that are here today. And the previous speaker is quite correct. It is quite an amazing growth, having grown up in Lakewood myself and known students I worked with in restaurants together. I worked with some CCU students, and seeing the growth of the university over the years, just really like to say that is definitely a jewel in Lakewood, and certainly invite all of you to come and see. Also, they are a very politically active university, and I think that's great that young people are getting to know the political system as well, and certainly being down here. It's my understanding that many of the students were actively involved in my campaign, but I don't seem to remember meeting any of them. But I'm sure that was just an oversight. But with that, I'd like to welcome all of the folks from CCU here today. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I too welcome CCU to the Capitol. And the political activism that was just, excuse me, did I ask for a moment of personal privilege?
I'll let you tag on.
May I ask for a moment of personal privilege, Mr. President?
Continue.
Thank you very much. And I wanted to make the comment that with the political activism, I know I have been invited to come over and join panels and be a part of showing different perspectives and different opinions, and felt very welcome and felt very honored to be a part of those discussions and meeting particularly with some of the young educators. And I can't let it go without saying that one of the members of the CCU staff and administration is a former student of mine. So for those of you that doubt and wonder and are curious as to what kinds of results come from having spent a year with me as their teacher, I want to give a shout out to Jeff Hunt and welcome him to the Capitol personally. Thank you.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assuming I still have a moment of personal privilege, I just wanted to acknowledge that joining us today over in the House is the president of Colorado Christian University, Dr. Donald Sweeting, and with us in the chamber here in the Senate, the vice president of something, but he runs Centennial Institute, is Mr. Jeff Hunt, who is a very important part of the school and certainly an important. I'm sure he could be involved in your campaign, Senator Kerr. Thank you very much, Mr.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate continue to proceed out of order for a moment of personal privilege, actually two different subjects by the good senator from Lakewood, District 22.
Senator Kerr. Actually, we need to just go. Ask for it.
Thank you, Mr. President. I asked for a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you for allowing us a little leeway in the dress code today. And today is the day that our beloved Avalanche will be returning to the playoffs, first time in several years, and many of us that are enjoying wearing their colors. And yes, if you don't recognize one of the jerseys that someone is wearing, go ahead and ask us. I know Dave and myself would be happy to explain. These are not the typical jerseys that you always see. And you know, Mr. President, you're certainly wearing a very important Colorado throwback jersey, and I hope people ask you and get informed as to exactly what that uniform stands for. With that, I also want to remind folks that today is the 1-week anniversary of the Humboldt Broncos bus that was involved in a terrible accident up in Canada. And this is a junior hockey team. And they are actually a junior hockey team, not a high school. It was asked of me that many of the players who lost their lives were in their teens, 15 and 16-year-old teens. That's how they do it in Canada, is at a very early age. They are already involved in their junior hockey. And so I believe 13 members lost their lives a week ago. And as part of wearing our hockey sweaters and jerseys today, we are asking everyone who's wearing some hockey paraphernalia to please make a donation. Go to the GoFundMe page for the Humboldt Broncos and make a donation there. And even if you're not wearing anything with the Avs, and especially if you're wearing Predator colors, which I don't see anyone wearing Predator colors, thankfully. Please feel free in the spirit of sportsmanship and thoughts for these young people and their families. Please make a donation at the GoFundMe page. And with that, go Avs. It's a happy day and a sad day rolled together, and hopefully we'll be able to be wearing these jerseys for the next month at least. So thank you, Mr. President. Yeah.
Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for another moment of personal privilege. Thank you. Today, I am hosting a delegation from Albania. And if our Albanian delegation would please stand up. They are actually from the University of Shkodra. I'm getting nods there, so I think I actually got close there. In Shkodra in Albania. They are here learning a little bit about our political process today, but they are with Peg Fraser from the Metro State, who is showing them how our higher education system works here in the United States, and also a little bit of the interaction between higher ed and the political system. So if you could please welcome our Albanian delegation today. Thank you.
Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate continue to proceed out of order for a moment of personal privilege, a tribute by Senator from Denver, District 32.
We'll assume that motion is made. Senator Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for signing this tribute in honor of Rudolfo Corky Gonzalez, who actually died on April 12th, 2005. So today is the 13th anniversary of his death. He was a boxer, a poet, a political activist. He actually convened the first ever Chicano Youth Conference in March of 1969. He was an early leader of the movement for the equal rights of Mexican Americans, and his legacy has been continued by his children who join us here today. Ms. Nita Gonzalez, who founded and formed Escuela Tlatelolco, which was operative for 35 years here in Denver, and his son, Rudy Gonzalez, who runs Servicios de la Raza, which has been on the west side of town, providing important mental health and substance abuse services for our community for many years. We are also blessed to be joined today by his wife, Geraldine Gonzalez, who survives him, and other members of the Gonzalez family. So thank you for the activism and work of your father, and thank you for joining us here today in the Senate.
Senator Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. President. My friend from Fort Collins reminded me that I failed to recognize former colleague Senator Polly Baca, who was the first Latina senator in the Colorado legislature. Thank you, Senator Baca.
Welcome, Senator. Good to have you here today. Senator Guzman.
Thank you, Mr. President. And members, I rise today in support of this resolution for a man who did amazing things. I can hardly even describe what his life and what his journey was, not only for those of us consider ourselves Americans of Mexican descent or Mexican Americans. We're called many things, but when this man died, an era died as well in terms of the life of this man, but an era began again in terms of those of us who will always remember his sacrifices, his being beaten on the streets, his being shot at, narrowly escaping probably being lynched here in Denver and throughout the Southwest. An incredible man who marched with all African Americans, the Jews, the gay and lesbian community, the disabled, did not like war, did not like injustices. When he died that many years ago, the heavens opened up to receive one of our best. Thank you for bringing this resolution.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request a moment of personal privilege. Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I appreciate us just taking a little bit of time out of our day to recognize the Gonzalez family and Corky Gonzalez and really acknowledge their long and rich history of public service. It was mentioned a school was started, Escuela Tlatelolco, which did amazing things for our Chicano youth. Servicios de la Raza continues to do amazing things for our Chicano community, providing social services and community services. And my good friend, Serena Gonzalez Gutierrez, who's also here, who is chair of our Tony Gramscis Youth Services Board. So appreciate all you do for our community.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you to the Gonzalez family. I want to thank you for your rich heritage and history that you have brought into our nation. I can remember not really knowing that much about Corky Gonzalez. It wasn't until I went to college, excuse me, that I learned much more about my heritage. And so the term, because I was raised in a military family, I didn't get exposed to any ethnic studies at all. So I really did not know what the meaning was behind being a Chicano until I went to college. And I understand that it was your family that kind of coined this phrase, Chicano, and what it means as it relates to the revolution and the movement, especially with our migrant farm workers. It's such a rich history that you bring. I believe that the state of Colorado is truly blessed to have your family here in the state of Colorado. You have a library that's been named after your dad and your husband, and I just can't think of a more fitting tribute to your dad. He is someone that has taught me the meaning of being an advocate for the underserved. So the fight is not over. The struggle is not over. We have unresolved issues as it relates to DACA, and I can go on and on and on with the list. So we have to continue to make sure that his legacy is always with us. Thank you so very much.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate proceed out of order to take up consideration of conference committees to report.
I'm going to have Mr. Carpenter read those reports across.
I withdraw that motion. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Carpenter, conference committee reports.
First report of First Conference Committee on House Bill 1329. The President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, your First Conference Committee appointed on House Bill 1329 concerning a supplemental state payment to qualified providers of durable medical equipment who experienced a decrease in reimbursement in 2017-18 state fiscal years as a result of the implementation of Federal 21st Century Cures Act. In connection therewith, making an appropriation, his amendment reports that it is agreed upon the following, that the House accede to Senate amendments made to the bill as the amendments appear in the re-revised bill with the following changes. Respectfully submitted, House Committee Representative Hamner, Young, and Rankin. Senate Committee, Senators Lambert, Lumberg, and Moreno. First report of First Conference Committee on House Bill 1322 to the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Your First Conference Committee appointed on House Bill 1322 concerning the provision for payment of the expenses of the Executive, Legislative, and Judicial Departments of the State of Colorado and of its agencies and institutions for and during the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2018, except as otherwise noted, has met and reports that it is agreed upon the following. One, that the House accede to Senate amendments made to the bill as the amendments appear in the re-revised bill with the following changes. Two, that under the authority granted, the committee considers matters not at issue between the two houses following amendments be recommended. Respectfully submitted, House Committee, Representatives Hamner, Young, and Rankin. Senate Committee, Senators Lambert, Lumberg, and Moreno.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate proceed out of order for consideration of conference committees to report.
Motion is to proceed out of order for consideration of the conference committee reports. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and we'll proceed out of order for consideration of the conference committee reports. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title to House Bill 1322?
House Bill 1322 by Representative Hamner and Senator Lambert concerning the provision for payment of the expenses of the Executive, Legislative, and Judicial Departments of the State of Colorado and of its agencies and institutions for and during the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2018, except as otherwise noted.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. President. We move the first report of the First Conference Committee on House Bill 18-1322.
Is there any discussion? Senator Lambert.
Thank you. Members, we spent most of the afternoon yesterday going through, I believe it was 54 amendments, and then we had some other moving parts that we added to the long bill. And we had to revise some of the footnotes. I think all of you have received sort of the master copy of what, you know, the money transfers. It's a lot easier to read on this copy than it is in the actual conference committee report because this is sort of a spreadsheet. But in general, I'll just summarize some of the moving parts. Generally, as our normal practice, if there were amendments that passed in both the House and the Senate, generally we added those amendments to the long bill or made changes to the long bill as necessary. In some cases, there were about 4 or 5 motions where we added some of the, or at least parts of House amendments that were not part of the re-revised version, the Senate bill. In some cases, we looked at the re-revised version of the Senate bill and actually removed some of the Senate actions that did not pass in both houses. We also made some other additions to the long bill, including $2.5 million that had been requested by the Capital Development Committee. That was for health, life, and safety fixes to the Arkansas Valley Department of Corrections facilities. I think both the CDC and the JBC were very concerned that this has been hanging out there for several years, that in confined spaces where we have offenders in prisons, we need to have fire sprinkler type of systems that will, it's a health, life, and safety type of issue. And we work with CDC to make sure that that was funded this year so we get those fixes as soon as possible. We also added some cash funds to Department of State and some other various additional things that had been requested late in the session that we didn't have time to act on before we closed out the long bill. So I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have, but like I say, we could spend quite a bit of time on this. That's why we tried to summarize it in the handout that should have been distributed to all of you.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I just want to take a moment to thank the Republican, Democratic, and unaffiliated caucuses for all of your suggestions. You brought things to light that maybe the Joint Budget Committee missed. And so through your amendments, we carefully deliberated through the conference committee and made sure that within our financial constraints, how we did our best to accept as many of your suggestions and amendments as possible. And so that's what you see reflected in this conference committee report. I think good work was done through the budget, and I really appreciate you sharing your priorities with us, and certainly appreciate that those priorities have now been incorporated into the long bill, and certainly hope to have your support for this conference committee and for the long bill on repassage.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would simply like to add, particularly from the perspective of the chairman of the Appropriations Committee, that yes, in fact, we have incorporated the ideas that the House and the Senate have passed to, in addition to the long bill. And you know, some of the bills, or some of the amendments, simply take the dollars from one area and put it to another, but a great deal did not do that this year. And as a consequence, what you have before you is a committee report that in fact increases the budget by the general fund budget by about $30 million. And I say that, and I am endorsing this. It is certainly what the two houses have called for, but the cold hard reality is when you come to Appropriations Committee, you might not find the money is there anymore because we will have spent it today on the long bill.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I just want to thank the JBC for the collaboration and the cooperation of really working together on a tough challenge, trying to figure out how we balance and how we make sure that all voices are heard and really listening to. And I felt like the process this year really, even though the time that we were here on the floor went on and it was lengthy, I think the message of what the Colorado budget is about is extremely important. And, you know, I think we always say it is a moral document. What do we value and how do we really honor? And so I want to thank our three JBC members and thank you for the hard work of listening to all people and working to make it a good, workable document for the budget for Colorado. Thank you.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I would also like to acknowledge my partners here from Commerce City and from Berthoud. We've been locked together in a room for 6 months, and we haven't opened the door yet, and today may be the first day. But we've had a great deal of camaraderie, and I would say the whole committee has been highly professional in their conduct. I would even acknowledge the House members in that as part of our team, but to the extent that I can acknowledge House members. But it has been quite a privilege to serve on the committee, and with that, I would move again for your consideration the first report of the first conference committee on House Bill 181322.
I believe under Senate rules it's referred to as they who shall not be named. Is there any further discussion? Motion is for the adoption of the first report of the First Conference Committee on House Bill 1322. Are there any no votes on the Conference Committee report? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, the first report of the First Conference Committee on House Bill 1322 is adopted. Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the readoption of House Bill 1322 as amended.
You've heard the motion. Are there any no votes on readoption? Senator Hill, Senator Smallwood, Senator Neville, Senator Marble. With 31 ayes, 4 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1322 is readopted. Co-sponsors. Senator Kafalis, Senator Court, Senator Williams, Senator Todd, you're on, Senator Merrifield, Senator John, Leader Garcia, Senator Guzman, Senator Tate, Senator Crowder, Senator Fields, Senator Fenberg, Senator Zenzinger, Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title to House Bill 1329?
House Bill 1329 by Representative Rankin Senator Moreno concerning supplemental state payment to qualified providers of durable medical equipment who's experienced a decrease in reimbursement in 2017-18 state fiscal year as a result of the implementation of the Federal 21st Century Cures Act and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the first report of the First Conference Committee on House Bill 1329.
Discussion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, if you'll recall, this is the supplemental state-only payment for durable medical equipment. The federal government recently made some changes to those provider rates, unfortunately some drastic reductions, and have left us in the place of trying to make up for that. And so through the House, we were able to include an appropriation of about $6 million to go to those durable medical equipment providers. The Senate, understanding how important those providers are in our healthcare network, increased that appropriation to $9 million. And after balancing and after all of our discussions, we were able to find money to increase these payments to providers by $1.5 million. So you'll see on your conference committee report that the total for the durable medical equipment providers is roughly $7.6 million. And we've consulted with those providers on the date, and the date changes are their, certainly their preference in order to avoid any of a clawback situation for those providers. And so, this will be a longer discussion, colleagues, around what is the appropriate level of reimbursement for these providers, because they do provide an extremely important service to some of our most vulnerable populations. So those will be issues that we continue to discuss in the Joint Budget Committee going forward on provider rates.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you. In addition to, pardon me, what my colleague said, part of the biggest problem with this is the federal rules that came down were retroactive. So part of this is what you consider the term clawback. We're trying to cover lost rates that actually happened earlier in the fiscal year, which would have been a especially double hit to those providers. Durable medical equipment could come in a variety of forms, but in this case, think primarily oxygen that patients need in some cases to get out of hospitals, get back into a community and home-based setting. Certainly something that's vital for their livelihood and their lives. So we felt this was a very high priority. As my colleague said, this is not going to go away as an issue if provider rates especially targeted provider rates in some areas stay as low as they are. So I'm sure next year, these, maybe even during the interim, there'll be a reevaluation of some of these issues and probably future requests to come. But until that time, we would join to ask you for an aye vote on 1329, the conference committee.
Is there any further discussion? The motion is for the adoption of the first report of the first conference committee on House Bill 1329. Are there any no votes on the conference committee report? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, the first report of the first conference committee on House Bill 1329 is adopted. Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of House Bill 1329 as amended.
The motion is for the repassage of House Bill 1329. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1329 is readopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Crowder, Senator Zenzinger, Senator Kafalis, Senator Garcia.
Senatorial 5.
It'll be in a senatorial 5. Senate will come back to order. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title of House Bill 1338.
House Bill 1338 by Representative Rankin and Senator Lambert concerning transfers to address the reduction of revenues in the severance tax operational fund.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, we're going to make a motion here on 1338, and I'll explain it in a minute after I move it. I move that the conference committee on House Bill 1338 be dissolved and that the Senate adhere to its position.
Any discussion? Senator Lambert.
Members, the only differences between the House and the Senate version was a footnote that was put on in the House. We had some very good discussions on that. The senator from Commerce City coordinated with members of the House, and we found it more appropriate for that type of footnote, since it was fairly substantive, to actually put in a request for information within the long bill. You just voted on that. That included the request for information. It had to do with severance tax, and it affected both the Department of Revenue and Department of Natural Resources. Both of those organizations were in favor of that footnote. The senator from Commerce City, my colleague, coordinated with the original House sponsors. We recrafted that in a certain way that will expedite basically a study and new reports on the process of severance tax collection, which is badly needed. And so we do not have to take action on this. By adhering to the Senate position now, this will move back to the House, and they will have already decided to recede to the Senate position. So we have no action to take on the bill itself, just a procedural motion to send it back to the House, and they've already decided to recede to our position.
Any further discussion? The motion is to dissolve the first conference committee and adhere to the Senate's position on House Bill 1338. Are there any no votes on that motion? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, that motion is adopted, and the Senate adheres to its position on House Bill 1338. Mr. Carpenter, Senate Services.
Correctly printed, Senate Bill 238, 239, 240, Senate Concurrent Resolution 3, Senate Joint Memorial 5, Senate Joint Resolution 10, Senate Resolution 5, correctly engrossed, Senate Bill 31, 38, 39, 206, 209, 210, and 218, correctly re-engrossed, Senate Bill 166, correctly revised, House Bill 1042, 1146, 1147, 1193, 1257, 1264, 1268, 1275, and 1305.
Third reading of bills consent calendar. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the titles of all the bills on the third reading of bills consent calendar?
Senate Bill 209 by Senators Todd Martinez, Humanic, and Representative Pabon Thurlow concerning modifications to the Government Data Advisory Board created in the Office of Information Technology. House Bill 1264 by Representatives Jackson and Carver and Senators Cook and Fields concerning measures to clarify the scope of revenge porn and criminal offenses. House Bill 1257 by Representative Rosenthal and Senator Cook concerning a correction to House Bill 1316 by reinserting the word not. House Bill 1268 by Representative Gray and Senator Gardner concerning procedures to recall Director of a Special District. House Bill 1146 by Representative Melton and Senator Quorum concerning continuation on the Sunset Law and the Measurement Standards Law. House Bill 1147 by Representatives Janal and Ransom and Senator Quorum concerning continuation of the regulation of people who modify the weather and in connection therewith, implementing the Sunset Review recommendations of the Department of Regulatory Agencies. House Bill 1193 by Representatives Wilson, McLaughlin, and Senators Scott and Zinzinger concerning the Advanced Placement Incentives Pilot Program and in connection therewith, making an appropriation. Senate Bill 31 by Senator Gardner and Representative Foote concerning an extension of the Title 12 recodification study being conducted by the Office of the Legislative Legal Services in connection therewith, making an appropriation. Senate Bill 206 by Senators Priol and Kerr and Representatives Arndt and Wisk concerning ensuring affordability at public research universities in Colorado and in connection therewith, making an appropriation. Senate Bill 210 by Senator Tate and Representatives Arndt and Hooten concerning the regulation of real estate appraisal management companies in connection therewith, aligning state law with current federal law and regulations. Senate Bill 218 by Senator Quorum and Representative Arndt concerning the funding of Colorado Water Conservation Board projects and in connection therewith, making appropriations. House Bill 1305 by Representatives Coleman and Neville and Senator Neville concerning a voluntary contribution designation benefiting the Young American Center for Financial Education Fund that appears in the state individual tax return forms. House Bill 1275 by Representative Bridges and Senator Kagan concerning the repeal of the Craig Hospital license plate donation requirement. House Bill 1042 by Representatives Becker, Jay, and Janal and Senators Scott and Zinzinger concerning the creation of a program to authorize private providers to register commercial vehicles as Class A personal property in connection therewith, making and reducing an appropriation. Senate Bill 38 by Senators Donovan and Corman, Representative Escar and Willett concerning the allowable uses of reclaimed domestic wastewater in connection therewith, allowing reclaimed domestic wastewater to be used for industrial hemp cultivation. Senate Bill 39 by Senator Jones and Cook and Representatives Thurlow and Exum concerning the Wildfire Matters Review Committee and in connection therewith, deferring the date on which the committee is scheduled to repeal and making an appropriation.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move all the bills listed on the third reading of bills consent calendar, including Senate Bill 209, House Bills 1264, 1257, 1268, 1146, 1147, 1193, Senate Bills 31, 206, 210, 218, House Bills 1305, 1275, 1242, Senate Bills 38, 30, and 39.
1042 instead of 1242.
Excuse me, 1042, Senate Bill 38 and 39.
Thank you, Mr. Majority Leader. Is there any discussion on any of the bills? The motion is for the adoption of all the bills on the third reading of bills consent calendar. Are there any no votes on any of the bills on the consent calendar? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 209 is adopted. Co-sponsors, Senator Tate. With 35 ayes, Senator Williams. With 35 ayes, there are noes, there are absent, 0 excused. House Bill 1264 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Tate, Senator Court, Senator Kafalas, Senator Kagan, Senator Williams, Senator Todd, Senator Martinez-Humenick, Senator Lambert, Leader Garcia. With 35 ayes, there are noes, there are absent, 0 excused. House Bill 1257 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Court, Senator Kerr, Senator Gardner, with 35 ayes, there are noes, there are absent, 0 excused. House Bill 1268 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Tate. With 35 ayes, there are noes, there are absent, 0 excused. House Bill 1146 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Sonnenberg, Senator Tate, Senator Baumgardner. 1146. We're on 1146. Co-sponsors: Senator Jones. With 35 ayes, 0 noes, there are absent, 0 excused. House Bill 1147 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Moreno, Senator Donovan, Senator Kerr. Co-sponsors on 1147. With 35 ayes, 0 noes, there are absent, 0 excused. House Bill 1193 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Sonnenberg, Senator Tate, Senator Martinez-Humenick, Leader Garcia, Senator Todd, Senator Williams, Senator Donovan, Senator Merrifield, Senator Moreno, Senator Fields, Senator Kafalas, Senator Kerr, Senator Priola. With 35 ayes, 0 noes, there are absent, 0 excused. Senate Bill 31 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Kagan, Senator Moreno, Senator Martinez-Humenick, Senator Tate, Senator Fields. With 35 ayes, 0 noes, there are absent, 0 excused. Senate Bill 206 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Crowder, Senator Tate, Senator Todd, Senator Williams, Senator Moreno, Senator Kagan, Senator Court, Senator Merrifield, Leader Garcia, Senator Kafalas, Senator Fields, Senator Zenzinger, Senator Jones, Senator Neville, Senator Lambert, Senator Marble, Senator John, Senator Fenberg, Senator Donovan, Senator Kerr. With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 210 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Martinez-Humenick, Senator Tate. With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 218 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Leader Garcia, Senator Cook, Senator Fenberg, Senator Crowder, Senator Baumgardner, Senator Sonnenberg, Senator Tate, Senator Lambert, Senator Gardner, Senator Scott, Senator Priola, Senator Williams, Senator Moreno, Senator Donovan, Senator Todd, Senator Merrifield, Senator Kerr, Senator Martinez-Humenick, Senator Lundberg, Senator John, Senator Marble, Senator Neville, Senator Kafalas. With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1305 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Todd, Senator Moreno, Senator Tate, Senator Martinez-Humenic. With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1275 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Todd, Senator Moreno, Senator Tate, Senator Kerr. With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1042 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Cook, Senator Smallwood, Senator Tate, Senator Martinez-Humenic, Senator Sonnenberg, Senator Todd, Senator Moreno, with 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 38 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Cook, Senator Merrifield, Senator Moreno, Senator Williams, Senator Court, Senator Fenberg, Senator John, Senator Todd, Leader Garcia, Senator Kafalas, Senator Kerr, Senator Zenzinger, Senator Scott, Senator Priola, Senator Tate, Senator Martinez-Humenic, Senator Gardner, Senator Marble, Senator Baumgarten, Senator Sonnenberg, Senator Lambert, Senator Kagan, Senator Guzman, Senator Donovan, Senator Neville. With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 39 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Crowder, Senator Priola, Senator Martinez-Humenic, Senator Lambert, Senator Tate, Senator John, Senator Merrifield, Senator Todd, Senator Williams, Senator Moreno, Senator Court, Senator Fenberg, Leader Garcia, Senator Kafalas, Senator Fields, Senator Neville, Senator Lundberg, Senator Marble, Senator Guzman, Senator Kerr, I see that hand, Senator Donovan, Senator Lambert. Oh. Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor on Senate Bill 209 and 1142.
You will be added. Third reading bills, final passage. Senator Lambert, which bills did you say? 209? 209. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title of the Senate Bill 201?
Senate Bill 201 by Senator Priola and Representative Covarrubias concerning the application of child care licensing requirements for religious organizations for the time period during which services or programs are being offered.
Senator Priola.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 201 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any further discussion? Motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 201. Are there any no votes? Senator Merrifield, Senator Williams, Senator Jones, Senator Fields, Senator Kafalas, Senator Guzman, Leader Garcia, Senator Kerr, Senator Fenberg, Senator Court, Senator Kagan, Senator Moreno, Senator Zenzinger, Senator Donovan, Senator Todd, Senator John. With 19 ayes, 16 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 201 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Senator Marble, Senator Cook, Senator Hill, Senator Neville, Senator Scott, Senator Crowder, Senator Baumgardner, Senator Gardner, Senator Sonnenberg, Senator Smallwood, Senator Tate, Senator Lundberg, Senator Lambert, Majority Leader Holbert, please add the President. Majority Leader Holbert. Please mark Senator Aguilar as excused. Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. President. Having voted on the prevailing side, I move for the immediate reconsideration of Senate Bill 201.
Motion for the body is for immediate reconsideration of Senate Bill 201. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and we'll move to immediate reconsideration. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 201?
Senate Bill 201 by Senator Priola and Representative Covarrubias concerning the application of child care licensing requirements for religious organizations for the time period during which services or programs are being offered.
Senator Priola.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 201 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 201. Are there any no votes? Leader Garcia, Senator Guzman, Senator Kefauver, Senator Fields, Senator Zenzinger, Senator Jones, Senator Moreno, Senator Kagan, Senator Donovan, Senator Court, Senator Kerr, Senator Fenberg, Senator John, Senator Merrifield, Senator Todd, Senator Williams. With 18 ayes, 16 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, Senate Bill 201 is adopted. Co-sponsors. You don't need to do it a second time. No, you can't. General order, second reading of bill. Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the committee resolve, or the Senate resolve itself into the committee of the whole for the purposes of general orders, second reading of bills. Calendar.
Motion for the body is for the Senate to resolve itself in the committee of the whole for consideration of the general order, second reading of bills calendar. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will resolve itself into the committee of the whole for consideration of the general order, second reading of bills calendar. Senator Neville will take the chair.
Committee will come to order. The court rule is relaxed. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the titles of the second reading of bills? I'm sorry, please read the title of Senate Bill or House Bill 1040.
House Bill 1040 by Representative Benavidez and Senator Fields concerning incentives for provision of sex offender services in the Department of
Senator
Corrections.
Fields.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1040. There are no committee reports.
Is there any discussion on House Bill 1040?
Yes,
Senator
Mr. Chair.
Fields.
Basically, what this bill does, it allows for the Department of Correction to have an incentive programs to make sure that offenders get the proper treatment that they need to get access to parole. So I urge an aye vote on this House Bill 1040.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is for the adoption. Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We heard this bill in committee, and I actually voted against the bill because I wanted to take the opportunity today to say, I'm sorry, we need this bill. I think if corrections were doing their job, the jobs that we have entrusted them to do, we would not be here. But the fact is that we found in committee that they can't get the professionals to come to Canyon City to do that. I would like to know why. I did a quick Google, and there's 28 people in Pueblo alone that could provide the services that they need in Canyon City. And to say that we can't get them because they don't want to come from Denver is wrong. We need to ask corrections why this is happening and why we have to bring this hammer to get them to do it. They should be doing it without this bill. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Kagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And in our questioning of the Department of Corrections over the years in Smart Act hearings and elsewhere, they have consistently said, we want to fully staff the Sex Offender Treatment Management Board, the SOTMP, in the Department of Corrections and provide the sex offender treatment. We have tried everything that we know. We cannot persuade the qualified treatment providers to come to the facilities and provide the treatment that they are qualified to provide. They find it quite feasible to get treatment providers in Denver. Just market forces seem to not be sufficient. The incentives don't seem to be sufficient. They can't force people to go into the facilities and provide treatment for the sex offenders there. They can't subpoena them. They can't require them to go. All they can do is ask them to come, offer to pay them, and now, with these additional incentives, perhaps this will finally work. But I don't share with my senatorial colleague the implied criticism of the Department of Corrections that they haven't been trying. I think they've been trying. They just find that the market doesn't provide the number of treatment providers that they need. And this will probably help. And so I do urge an aye vote on this bill.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you. I think the senator from Alamosa made a good point that this is an untenable situation. I'm sorry, Montrose. Sorry about that. Yes. But this is a multi-year problem. Many years I've heard the department in the Joint Budget Committee discuss this. Former Senator Stedman was on the Sex Offender Management Board for a number of years. He would bring these issues forward. We are following, the last audit was several years ago, but the audit of the Sex Offender Management Treatment Program was horrendous. There were corrections that they've tried to make out of that, but this continues to be a problem. And quite often, getting that training completed and getting, sometimes it's, maybe the training is over zealous or whatever, but quite often offenders can't get onto parole when they've otherwise not had training. It's a very important problem, and it's would actually result probably in a cost savings if we get our hands around this problem. But certainly this is a very valid concern. I'm not sure how we're going to correct it, if this bill is going to be the ultimate solution, but certainly is something we've heard about for years in my stead in the Budget Committee, and hopefully we'll make some serious decisions to get this thing fixed.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1040. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. 1040 is adopted. Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to lay over Senate Bill 220 at the sponsor's request till Monday, April 16th.
Motion is to lay over Senate Bill 220 until Monday. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 220 will be laid over until Monday. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title of, oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Mr. Carpenter, please read the title of HCR 1001.
House Concurrent Resolution 1001 by Representatives Lee and Winston, Senators Court and Gardner, submitting to the Register of Electors of the State of Colorado an amendment to the Colorado Constitution
Senator
concerning a
Court.
change in the format of the election ballot for judicial attention elections.
Senator Court.
Mr. Chair, members, we bring to you a constitutional change. I move HCR 181001. This is a change to the Constitution, so we need 2/3 of you to vote on this to send it to the ballot to change the Constitution. The reason we need to do this is that way back when, the Constitution stated that judges have to have the question about whether they should be retained next to each of their names. And this was before we had a bazillion judges. So it made okay sense. But now we have about a bazillion judges, and it's taking up a lot of space on the ballot. And so this is basically an efficiency measure to say that the ballot can be printed to say, shall the following judges or justices be retained in just one time, and then all their names are listed with yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And it simply will make the ballots cleaner and more understandable for the voters, and it will make the budgets for ballots much more reasonable for our county clerks. So we urge an aye vote.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think my colleague's explanation was adequate. We ask for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of HCR 1001. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. 1001 is adopted. Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee rise and report.
Motion before the body is for the committee to rise and report. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The committee will rise and report.
Senate will come back to order. Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committee has met and considered a number of bills. And Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the bills on second reading?
Mr. President, your committee will reports that on consideration of following attached bills being second reading thereof makes following recommendation around House Bill 1040, House Concurrent Resolution 1001, passed second reading or revised, placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 220 laid over until 4/16/18, retaining its place on the calendar.
Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the report.
Motion before the body is the adoption of the report to the committee of the whole. Are there any no votes? 35 ayes, 0 noes, or absent. 34 ayes, 0 noes, or absent. 1 excused. The committee of the whole report is adopted. House Bill 1040, House Concurrent Resolution 1001, passed on second reading, ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 220 laid over until 4/16/18, retaining its place on the calendar. Consideration of resolutions. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title of Senate Resolution 4?
Senate Resolution 4 by Senators John and Crowder concerning encouraging the Great Outdoors Colorado program to assist organizations that provide outdoor restoration and recreational activities to military veterans.
Senator John.
Thank you, Mr. President. And we move SR 18004 and do not ask that it be read at length. We would just have some comments to make.
Please proceed.
Thank you. We're actually pretty excited to bring this resolution because it's actually in lieu of some legislation that we thought we were going to need, and we actually had already passed through the State Veterans and Military Affairs. You know, we all know in Colorado, and we are deeply grateful to the men and women who are veterans of the United States Armed Forces, that the courage that they show and the continual protections and defense that they give our nations. After their discharge from service, many of these veterans require treatment for physical disabilities and mental health issues, the result of the veteran service. Participation in outdoor restoration and recreational activities is one of the best ways to help restore the health and well-being of such veterans. We're fortunate in Colorado that we afford countless opportunities for these veterans and other residents to enjoy outdoor restoration and recreational activities. And in 1992, who we have found an incredible home and partner in this endeavor, was established in 1992. We formed the Great Outdoors Colorado program, and it was to preserve, protect, enhance, and manage the state's wildlife park, river, trail, and open space heritage. Well, it is through this program they became very excited about the content of what we were doing in this Senate bill, that they want to just take that program on and put it right within the stuff that they are doing. And so we decided to run a resolution on their behalf so that we could give them the recognition and the ability to move this program right into what they are doing. So with that, we ask for an aye vote on Senate Resolution 4.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank Great Outdoors Colorado for stepping up to the plate and offering to fund this very important project for veterans. And I would ask for an aye vote on this.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Resolution 4? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Resolution 4. Are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, Senate Resolution 4 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Senator Crowder.
Current roll call be added as sponsors.
Without objection.
I thought I said that in a terminology that was a question.
Without objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors.
I withdraw that request, Mr. President, and just ask for co-sponsors. We had an objection. We have to.
Okay. Senator Todd, Senator Williams, there was objection, by the way. Senator Kagan, Senator Merrifield, Senator Court, Senator Donovan, Senator Zenzinger, Senator Kerr, Leader Garcia, Senator Fields, Senator Neville, Senator Gardner, Senator Coram, Majority Leader Holbert, Senator Cook, Senator Sonnenberg, Senator Priola, Senator Martinez-Humenick, Senator Smallwood, Senator Tate, Senator Lambert, Senator Scott, Senator Lundberg, Senator Marble, Senator Guzman, Senator Kafalis. Please add the President. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title of the Senate Joint Resolution 10?
Senate Joint Resolution 10 by Senators Crowder and Corman, Representative McLaughlin, concerning the designation of Colorado State Highway 84 between Pagosa Springs and the Colorado State line as the Nolan Olson Memorial Highway.
Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move SJR 18-010 and ask that it be read at length.
Mr. Carpenter.
Senate Joint Resolution 10 by Senators Crowder and Quorum and Representative McLaughlin concerning the designation of Colorado State Highway 84 between Pagosa Springs and the Colorado state line as the Nolan Olson Memorial Highway. Whereas Nolan E. Olson was born June 18, 1953, in Salina, Kansas, and whereas Nolan came from a large family of 9 children and at the age of 16 left home and moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and whereas Nolan became homeless and was living on the banks of the Rio Grande, but despite his situation, he enrolled himself in high school, found a job, and began his new life. And whereas Nolan went to school during the day and worked nights and weekends, saving up enough money to eventually rent a room, and graduated 2 years later with his high school diploma. And whereas Nolan was a jack of all trades and could do anything and do it well. He worked as a mechanic on hydraulics, as a salesman for a large lumber company, and refurbished old cars in his spare time to resell them. And whereas Nolan moved to Pagosa Springs, Colorado in 1998 and put his handyman skills to use working at a local hardware store, and then was hired by the Colorado Department of Transportation, CDOT, in 2004. And whereas Nolan loved serving the public by plowing snow, providing avalanche control, and keeping the public safe on what he considered his roads. And whereas Nolan also loved the beauty and wildlife that Colorado has to offer, and he enjoyed hunting, fishing, and most of all, time with his grandchildren. And whereas on February 2nd, 2018, 14 years after beginning his career with CDOT, Nolan was struck by a motorist while maintaining one of his roads outside of Pagosa Springs and died from his injuries on February 11th. And whereas Nolan Olson was a hardworking, dedicated public servant who will be missed by his family and by his extended CDOT family. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate of the 71st General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the House of Representatives concurring herein, the Colorado State Highway 84 between Pagosa Springs and the Colorado state line be renamed the Nolan Olson Memorial Highway, that the Colorado Department of Transportation may accept and expend grants, gifts, and donations for the purpose of the initial placement of the 2 signs to mark Colorado State Highway 84 as the Nolan Olson Memorial Highway. Be it further resolved, the copies of this joint resolution be sent to Nolan Olson's wife, Sandra Hamilton, family members Tanya Hamilton and Aaron Hamilton, CDOT Executive Director Michael Lewis, and CDOT Region 5 Transportation Director Mike McFaul.
Senator Quorum.
Mr. President, thank you all. Please be seated. Thank you all for listening to this. And, you know, it's sad that we do this far too often. We, as the traveling motorists, a little over 5.5 million of us, Colorado is a very mobile state. We're always on the road. And it's sad that we do not show the respect and give the safety to those workers that are out there repairing the roads. Our state troopers, our police, our sheriff. Yes, even our construction workers. You go through these construction zones. You see the sign down at 40. You slow down, somebody passes you at 70. More than once, I have seen a state highway worker scramble to get out of the way. Somehow, we do not respect the work that they're doing. I don't know if we're concentrating on something else, but about a month ago, I was crossing Colfax Avenue, had the light, and I caught a flash out of the corner of my eye as a car went behind me, probably doing 40 miles an hour. One step later, I would have been hit. I don't think he saw me. I don't think he saw the light. I don't think they were paying attention. And, you know, I know that nobody does this on purpose. But the fact is, for whatever reason we are distracted, whatever reason it is, we have to put a stop to this. And thank you for supporting this resolution.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm very honored to bring this forward with my esteemed colleague here. It was Mr. Olson, Nolan Olson, was very much loved by his family and his community. But what really struck me at the services for this gentleman was the camaraderie and the love from his fellow workers. It was cool, that a gentleman like this could be integrated in the CDOT of the Pagosa Springs area, and how well he got along with so many people. And I thought it was also very fitting, since he was a snowplow operator. If you noticed on the memorial, it was Colorado State Highway 84. And this is from Pagosa Springs to the state line. Actually, this is part of the highway that this gentleman maintained. So I thought it was very fitting, and I thought it was a remarkable situation they had there with the service of this man, and I'm very honored to be part of this. And I would ask you, if you ever get on 84 between Pagosa and the state line, you might take a look at that sign and pause for a moment of our very, very valuable CDOT workers. Thank you, Mr. President. I would ask for an aye vote.
Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thanks to the sponsors of this resolution. And thank you, members. Last year, we, of course, passed similar resolutions regarding the move over for Cody issue south of Castle Rock. There are signs now on I-25 commemorating Trooper Jurcevic and Trooper Donahue. But the legislation that we passed last year also strengthened the penalties for folks who work for CDOT, snowplow drivers, REA employees out working on electric lines, or Excel employees, tow truck drivers. So I wanted to come up and say thank you again for supporting that. And can we get to a point where we don't have similar resolutions, where people who are out doing the work for all of us out there on our roadways are lost. Moms and dads don't get home because people are out there working for us. And for CDOT, the State Patrol, the entities in Colorado who have helped promote the move over law, the electronic signs that we see on our roadways, to the media, people in the news departments who have continued to talk about this and report on it, thank you. To the motorists in Colorado who I see slowing down and moving over, thank you. It has become less frequent, more rare, that I see people sort of with their foot down and maybe their eyes down, racing past a vehicle with flashing lights on the roadside. But I do see that has become less frequent, and I am grateful for those like Velma Donahue who have brought those issues to us, and grateful again to the sponsors for bringing this resolution. But let's work together so that we don't have to do this again. Thank you.
Senator Corum.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I just want to give a special thank you to the senator from Alamosa. Mr. Olson lived in my district, but basically we are the Southern Colorado family. The senator from Alamosa and I represent all of the southern border. And I was scheduled for an event that I could not get out of, and I want to thank the good senator for going to the services and representing the state of Colorado at that when I could not be there. I ask for an aye vote.
Senator Crowder.
Well, on reflection on that, if you recall earlier, they called the senator here from Alamosa. So actually, I did take his place, but they thought I were you. So we're...
Seems to happen.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Joint Resolution 10. Are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, Senate Joint Resolution 10 is adopted. Senator Corum.
Mr. President, I would ask that the current roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Without objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to labor Senate Resolution 5 at the sponsor's request to Monday, April 16.
The motion is to lay over Senate Resolution 5 until Monday, April 16. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and that will lay over. Consideration of Governor's Appointments Consent Calendar. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read all the appointments on the consent calendar?
Members of the State Electrical Board, for terms expiring July 1st, 2020, Joseph Badaracco of Liquid, Colorado, serves as a journeyman electrician who is not an electrical contractor, reappointed. Eric Clark of Denver, Colorado, serves as a representative of the public at large, appointed for terms expiring July 1st, 2021. Richard Michael King of Larkspur, Colorado, to serve as a representative of electrical utilities, appointed. Gina Maria Cullen of Golden, Colorado, to serve as a master electrician who is not an electrical contractor, appointed. Members of the State Plumbing Board, for terms expiring July 1st, 2021. Glenn Ray Ratliff of Aurora, Colorado, a Democrat member of or employee of any local government agency conducting plumbing inspections, appointed. Matthew Ray Waggy of Greeley, Colorado, Republican master plumber, reappointed.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move all of the appointments listed on the consideration of Governor's Appointments Consent Calendar consisting or including members of the State Electrical Board and members of the State Plumbing Board.
Is there any discussion? Motion is for the adoption of all the governor's appointments listed on the consent calendar. Are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, the appointments are confirmed. The following persons have been appointed to the State Electrical Board: Joseph Badaracco, Eric Clark, Richard Michael King, Gina Marie Cullen, and to the State Plumbing Board, Glenn Ray Ratliff, Matthew Ray Wagey. Signing of bills.
The President signs Senate Bill 26 and 149. The President signed House Bill 1017, 1018, 1049, 1056, 1078, and 1154.
Message from the House.
The House has passed on third reading transmitted with revised statutes. House Bill 1114, 1263, 1286, and minutes printed in the House Journal April 11, 2018. The House is postponed indefinitely. Senate Bill 175. The bill is returned herewith.
Message from the Reviser.
We herewith transmit without comment as amended House Bill 1114, 1263, and 1286.
Announcements. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, just a reminder that tomorrow we will begin at 8:30 in the morning. It won't be a long time on the floor. We want to make sure that members who need to move to multi-county district assemblies have time to get here or not, and then up to North Denver, I think, for one party, and South Denver for the other. So we will meet at 8:30 tomorrow morning. And then again on April 26th, we're going to start here on the floor at 9:30 to accommodate a meeting of Legislative Council. I will step aside so that others may offer announcements.
Senator Kafalis.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. Tonight, the Colorado Society of Eye Physicians and Surgeons is having their annual legislative reception. It is from 5:30 to 7:30 this evening at the University Club. Please join our ophthalmologists and eye surgeons, and I believe eye exams will also be available. So if you're like me and you need these glasses to read things, it might be in your interest to attend and also meet with some of the eye surgeons and the ophthalmologists. Thank you this evening.
Senator Martinez-Humenick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, and to the public out there, just a reminder that we are going to have some windy days here, and we've already had a number of fires that have been started. Please, please do not throw lit cigarette butts at your window, and please be conscious of controlled burns, especially on windy days, because we've already had a number of fires. There was a fire in Grand Junction a week or so ago, and there's been one down by Fort Carson. So please, please be mindful of not causing fires in our communities and along our roadways.
Senator Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Energy Committee, we will be taking off Senate Bill 226 today. We will not hear 226. Both sponsors are tied up in other meetings, so, whoops. Yeah, no, that's right. Senator Koufalis looking at me like, what in heaven's name? But I get that all the time. Senate Bill 226 will not be heard today.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, operating under the principle that no good deed goes unpunished, the JBC will be meeting upon adjournment.
Announcements. Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance will meet at 11:20. We have 2 bills. Let's get her done.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President, colleagues. I was thinking of coming down and requesting permission to request personal privilege, but I decided not to.
Granted. Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a request that everyone in their hockey gear, if we could borrow your podium right after we're done to take a picture, that'd be great. Thanks.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, as I have mentioned before, we're going to leave the desk open probably every day through the end of the session. We may have bills to read over, committee reports, that sort of thing, but you do not need to be here. Mr. President, I move the Senate recess until 1:30 p.m. today.
The motion is for the Senate to recess till 1:30 p.m. today. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will stand in recess till 1:30 p.m. today.
Thank you.